Good evening, afternoon, and morning. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us. I've got you all on mute, so it's not going to be one direction, if you like the old pop group going on there, corny jokes. But I'll do some waffling, do some chatting. I'm going to talk through about guest podcasting, how important it is, how to do it the old way, how to do it the new way, and go through that. And we'll show you a little bit of podcast talk. And then we can have some questions at the end. So I've done it that way because we've got 30 minutes and there's quite a bit to get through. So without further ado, I'll get started. And if I drop off, it's because the UK has been hit by more storms and snow. So apologies for that, but it's been okay up to now, thankfully. So bear with me. Let's just jump in. And let me just stop my video a sec so you don't have to look at me. There we go. Perfect. So off we go. So you've either come because you know what podcast talk is, or you're using that, and we're here to talk a little bit about that today and give you some context of it, but it's more about the benefits and some of the older ways of trying to be a guest on a podcast. That's the idea and plan around that. So bear with me, someone's just coming in. So we'll talk about that a little bit as well as we walk through there. And like I say, there's questions at the end, jump in, and we'll be doing these webinars again. And this is our first time. So a little bit about us, who's Podcast Talk. If you don't know, if you've not been here before, don't know who we are. So we, it's about 18 months ago now, maybe even longer. I don't know. 2019, Ray came up with the idea. So Ray, our founder, decided he wanted to promote his business, which is a language business, and get out there a little bit more and explain his products and services, and not do guest blogging anymore, but let's go and do some guest podcasting. Like all of us, we've been through this route, thought it was going to be really simple. And he went through this frustrating pain of trying to do this, going searching on Google, going to different shows, joining sort of matchmaking type sites where hosts find guests, etc. And in the end, Ray, being a developer, decided to build it himself. Famous last words. So he started to build the app that we have now by getting all the podcast data that he could, and thought it would be a quite simple task. 12, 18 months, 2 years later, whatever the time frame is from him actually starting to code, we're now where we're at. So just to give you a little bit of concept, who I am and who the team is and who we are. So I'm in the middle, obviously there. Look like I've got a bit of a suntan. It was when we had a little bit of springy weather and caught the rays for about 3 seconds, which is great. You may have quickly saw I do like bright shirts. That's one of my little traits in a sense. And I love data as well. So, oh yeah, every takes a minute. I love cars that I can't afford, but hey ho. Ray, our founder, he loves books and technology. He's a developer, so he sits more at the back, and he's been on about 120, 130 podcasts now. So he was just on Pat Flynn about 2 weeks ago. He's coming out on John Lee Dumas anytime now. And there's a lot more shows in the can as well. And then we've got Ishmael, who heads up our DevOps and our team, who are actually building the product. They're doing the hard work. We get to take all the glory and do all the fun. So today we're going to talk about, guest podcasting, why it's beneficial, what it means to you as an individual or as a business or as a brand, as a book author, a charity. I've just been working with some charities in the last couple of weeks around that. So, we've put some statements on the site, and there's some kudos around that in terms of John Lee Dumas talked about this 3, 4, 8 million years ago, it feels like now, when he first started. And he got the Pat Flynn effect. And he saw the power of being a guest on other people's podcasts to promote his brand and get an awareness and get an understanding of what he was doing at the time, which was quite challenging. Releasing an episode a day, that takes some work. Recently Neil Patel has been talking about guest podcasting is the new king. Don't do guest posting, go guest podcasting. It's easier, it's simpler from that aspect. And then Pat Flynn recently, he talked about guest podcasting is the new guest blogging. And that was based on something that Seth O'Donnell said again 4 or 5 years ago about guest blogging. So it's not just us that believes in the power of guest podcasting. There's a whole load of rock stars as well, and there's more out there going on that. In the meantime, we're creating some content on the site. If you go and have a look at the blogs, that talks about this and goes into a bit more depth around that. So why guest podcast? What's it going to do for you? You know, what's that difference that it's going to make to you? Well, it's about that aspect of you know, getting your brand and awareness out there around that sort of thing. And you know, now what we're seeing over the last 2 years and last 4 years and the growth of podcasts in the sense is more people are listening to podcasts. They're listening to niches, they're listening to genres, they're starting to create their own lists of interest and listen to them regularly in the car, when they're out running, sat at home while they're working. That's what I tend to do. When you actually go on a podcast and you're interviewed, if you think about it, you're doing 30 to 60 minutes of your own time to do that. In the background, the person that's running that podcast is doing a whole lot more legwork to get that episode out and get it out for you. And when you go on there, and if you know, a book author or you're going into a niche, you're going into a highly targeted audience. So if you're looking to go into book authors, or you're writing a book about chopping wood, something totally random, that's a highly targeted and engaged audience are listening to that, because that's what they're listening to. That's where they want to be around that. And it's the same ethos of guest blogging, is you're putting some content somewhere where there's an audience you know that fits your criteria. That's the key element around that. And then in terms of sort of that interview in that time as well, most are about 30 to 45 minutes long. And that's plenty of time for you to tell your story, get across your message around you know, what you're trying to get across, your knowledge, and sharing that. And then think of that in terms of the amount of time it would take you to write an article that would be published on your site or another site, get that out there and exchange it. That's it. Yeah. I'm not a content writer, so if you're like me, I can talk, I can waffle, I can sort of do that thing. Writing a piece of content is more than 30 to 45 minutes. Somebody that's doing a really good interview will draw out of me the insightful facts that needs to be known. So, and also, you know, the human voice builds trust. So the written word is great and it builds knowledge, and people have built a brand around that. There's nothing wrong with that at all. But if you look at podcasts and audio and visuals, people build trust in that. They build trust in your voice and what you're saying, and the ethos of where you are as well. So that's key. And then you get the side benefits, such as, and this is what me and Ray talk about, is the backlinks, the SEO, that natural audience push and promotion, which is, you know, most podcast hosts that are doing it prolifically will have their own blog, their own social network, their own methodology for pushing it out. And then somebody who's up and coming is releasing 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 episodes and just getting going. They will be doing that as well. And so when you're published as a guest, you get a link on their website, you get pushed out into their social reach, and that happens automatically or with a bit of effort from yourselves and an agent, their agency, or them doing it. And normally at the end of that interview, they'll ask you for a call to action. So where can you be found? What's your website? What do you want to tell people? Have you got a special offer? Whatever it may be. So within that creates backlinks back to you. So you have a social presence, a website, some area where people can come and find you, and that backlink then comes back to you, which is gold. That's what you're looking for. And not only that as well is, the promotional side of you getting pushed out to their network, getting that authority, that authentication from them and their audience about who you are and what you bring into the party around that. So, you know, they're some of the key facts about why we see guest podcasting being so powerful, and part of the reason we decided to go down this route and not so much, you know, build the product to help solve some of the pain, but also just start to reach out to audiences in a more methodical way. Can't get that word out today. So we'll have a look at, excuse me, have a look at how you become a rockstar guest around that as well, and how you can help sort of drive your own personal brand, your own personal awareness around that as well. So just, yeah, sorry for the cheesy video. I just had to put it in there. It was the cheesiness in me. So I'll just share that. Let me 1 second. Sorry, I've lost my screen. There we go. So what we've got here is we're just going to talk through a typical sort of what me and Ray used to do to get on podcasts. And again, it's changed, and there are other sites where you can list yourself as a potential guest or as a podcast host. And it's, you know, think of it as a two-sided marketplace in a sense around that. But again, it's a waiting mechanism. You're waiting for somebody to come and find you. You're not pushing out in terms of that activity to go and be found. You're waiting for somebody to come and say, hey, I'm looking for Stuart. He knows how to chop wood. He's an expert in it. I want him to come on my show. That's somebody literally coming to find you. So what we, you know, the typical sort of fashion way is, again, there are other products out there as well you can use. They'll go and search through podcast databases around that. But the hand crank mechanism is either going to iTunes or the podcast listed networks and start to search through them individually, or old-fashioned Google. So you can put Google search in that lists down podcasts themselves, and then you can scroll through them and you can literally look for those ones. So some of the caveats around this is it doesn't show you if they're live, it just returns that. Google's good because it'll bring back some of the latest shows, but that may not be the genre you're after, but at least it gives you that information. You can see that the latest shows are there, so it's live and active around that side of things. And then, so you could go and have a look in there and go, right, okay, that's great. I'm looking at podcasts about Google Ads, online marketing. That's where I want to be. I want to talk about SEO. So we go and have a look there, and we look at the show. And it's in iTunes. It's there. It's available. What it doesn't tell us is a lot. It gives us more details about what they're talking about, who they are, that sort of thing. It's great. Now, this particular one, it's got the website in there. If it didn't, you would then manually have to go and find that website and go and look for it yourself and dig out the details. So it would be literally go into Google, put it in again, find it, go to the website. That's great. But again, as we say, you know, this isn't giving you a lot of context. It's showing when the shows were released and what's going on, some of the ratings and stuff. It's giving you some contextual information around there. It may be enough for you to get started. So like I say, you found the website now. Fantastic. We can see a little bit of detail and we can go there, and now we can contact them. So we can go through this form, send them some details. We can actually go to the store, buy some shows, but actually we need to go and get some more details from them and ask if we'd like to, you know, we'd like to be a guest on there around that site. So you can imagine that's manually, we've just talked about for 3 or 4 minutes, how to go from a basic search, looking at one show, finding it on iTunes or wherever the directory is, going to then find the website if it's not listed in the description, to then contacting them. But you want to do that for 10, 20, 50, 100 shows. That starts to become a bit of a challenge to scale that activity, most definitely, because it's just, you can spend all day doing it. And this is where, you know, Ray started. This is where I started, and this is sort of where me and Ray met, talking about we came at it from different angles. I wanted to understand more about some of the data metrics on guests, and he wanted to get on shows to promote his business. they saw the benefit then about being a guest on a podcast. So that gives you sort of the context of why it's great being a guest podcaster, why it's less work than actually being a host. And there's nothing wrong with being a host. It builds your own brand and your own identity, can turn into a revenue stream, you can generate ads and sponsorship. But if you want to do it quickly and get benefits from it, being a guest podcaster is a way of dipping your toe in the water and testing it. Is one thing, see if you enjoy it, and another is getting the technology all set up and working correctly and such, so you can enjoy it and get benefits from it. What we're going to do now is just jump into Podcast Hawk and give some context on there in terms of what we would do to look for shows and go through shows and identify the shows there. In the meantime, I'm just gonna just change that a sec. I think it's okay. Yeah, brilliant. So one question, and I can't, if I mute you all, you're going to shout at me, is the screen visible okay? Do you need me to make it bigger? And Mike, you're on video. Yeah, good, perfect, good. Thank you for that. That's brilliant. So for those that don't know, Podcast Hawk is basically we sit on top of a large database of podcast data that we take from multiple sources. We add some other data to it, and we give you a nice visible user interface to go and search for what you're looking for around podcasting. And we do that by giving you these filters. So titles, descriptions, categories, when was the last episode date, how many episode numbers, etc. You get the gist. And we do this, and we're adding more metadata to this as well. And we have our own podcast scoring system that we'll talk about a little bit, just give you a bit of context on there. But the criteria is, when we were looking at Google and we were getting a result back, it was giving you granular, singular results without a lot of the data attached, or the ability to search through some of these criteria. Now, again, the criteria is based on the host and the details they put through. So we could look at categories is books or design and fashion. But if somebody hasn't categorized it, it doesn't really matter, because you could be looking for books and it could be the best podcast in the world. If they're not categorized under books and that's what you're searching under, it's not going to be returned as that. But we have a project in the background looking at this and going through categorization, adding more data to what we have and validating it with actual human beings. There's no artificial intelligence or machine learning or anything really fancy. We have some human beings, and we take it in turns going through large data sets around that. So you get the gist. You can filter by these components here, and what you can do through those categories is do ands. And what that means is, for anybody that's done develop at work or sort of worked in this environment before, you can do and statements. So it's like podcast description contains marketing and as a show. So I'm gonna walk you through that just to give you some context of it and show it you more visibly. So podcast description contains marketing, paid. In fact, actually, no, let's do let's see, paid search, and there has been a show. So latest episode date is before or after. So it's after. Let's say they've had a show in the last couple of months, type of thing. So we'll do the end of December around that aspect. And if we wanted to, we could then keep on going and going, actually, let's see ones that have had really large reviews or that sort of thing. But we don't have to. It's entirely, you can build complex searches or not around it. But the idea is to try and get some data and some podcasts that are interesting. That'll go away. And yeah, so we've put a date, a very specific description there, paid search, and it's come back with this one around that. And again, this is looking at the criteria of podcast description. There is a podcast title as well that you could go and search for, and it'll bring, well, it could bring back the same result, it could bring back different results. But again, the description, yeah. So the paid search podcast, the one that we had on Google before, you can see there, the description and the title are totally different, and we've got different criteria back. So again, the searches can be all different and different returns based on it, but it's quick. There's no going through Google 19 times or whatever it is. It's here, it's now, you can see it. So you can save that search for later on and come back to it. That's great. But in the meantime, so we were talking before about the details and such. So what we can do is, now we know that these two handsome chaps that I don't know, but they can pay me some sponsorship there, no problem. This is the data we get back. So we can see there's the title. There's a description of what the podcast is about. They've actually listed themselves in categories, who their hosts are, the country of origin. They've not put a language tag against this one, but we can see the reviews. And what we call the podcast Hawk score is based on metrics, and it's a moving scale because it's based on, it's a great show, but did the reviews go up and down? Have they released an episode in the last 2 weeks? So it's a moving target in a sense. And what it gives you an idea is of podcasts that are moving up the scale and gaining traction, and those that aren't, around that. So that gives you that concept. Then what we're going to do is, we've got this detail now. Fantastic. We've got some searches. We can actually go and listen to some of these episodes. We could go and read the show notes about them, etc. We've got a bit more depth there, again, without jumping around different screens and such. So what I can do on my account is I could download the details of that show and reach out to them manually, or I could go and create what we call a campaign. So anybody that's done email campaigns before, through MailerLite, MailerChimp, HubSpot, all that sort of thing, think of that. We've built that in the background to give you some context. So if we look at some of the campaigns I've already got saved in my account, to give you some context around that, because it takes a little bit of time to get these up and running and get them moving. I'm just going to give you an overview. So go on that. So like I say, you can download the details, do it yourself, not a problem, or you can build these campaigns. So we have the ability of create a couple of signatures, i.e. if you want to create one as your personal brand or as a business brand, you can do that, so your representation. You set your email up against our platform, so whether that's Gmail or Outlook or whatever it may be, you can get that set up, and then we send out a email or the emails on your behalf through your email platform. So it's not us sending the email, it's you, it's coming from you. It's just that we're giving access to that through secure authorization, which again, when you've signed up for the platform, you can go through that sort of thing. So you can see here, we've got campaign title, a little bit of a description. We provide email templates. You don't have to use them. So we've got 4 templates that are in the system. The first one is a bit more of a guiding one, talking you through some of the best practices. It's quite long, but once you've done it, you spend a bit of time on there, you can get the payback around that aspect. And then again, that's the first email. If there was no reply from the host, we would then send out an email on day 3. And again, you choose a template. So it may be you use template 3 this time, depending on what the message is or what you're trying to get across. Again, you can always preview these and see what it looks like being sent to the host. It's in basic format, in classic style. Here's what I prepared earlier. And again, if no reply on day 3, we would send a message on day 7, create a custom message, use a template, or just write whatever you want in here. You can use these particular components around adding the person's name, the podcast title, etc., into the email itself to save you some time. So you can see that they're already contained here, podcast title, etc. We've got them in the templates around that. And then finally, day 14 around that. So we send these emails out, but if you want to skip them, i.e. you don't want to send email 2 or email 3, you just skip them. It's fine. You don't have to send 4 emails out. And then we link back to how many emails you want to send a day. And this links back to really making sure, if you've got a lightweight email account, you want to make sure that you're not creating spam and you're not sending messages out that would get you marked in a sense. So we try and lock that down in the background in terms of we won't send hundreds of messages out, we just won't allow it. But you can then set the number of emails. And this is based on how many campaigns that you've got going. So you may have 3 campaigns, 4 campaigns, depending on your account. And it's the number of emails a day that you send out from that campaign. So each each campaign, which is I'm going to reach out to a podcast, set of podcasts about cutting wood, one about marketing, etc., etc. You can have them, but we never let you send more than 100 emails a day, because that would be considered potentially most people's account as spam. And then you get to the final piece, which, yeah, because this is a demo one that I've done earlier. I need to set a date that's realistic. We're reviewing launch. So what this does is pull together all the podcasts that we want to reach out to, and we're going to send messages to, and we can then look at each one and go, yeah, Grant Cardone, cool dude. I want to go and customize that. I want to make it a bit more personal. I've got my templates, so you can see here, they're all ready. The 4 emails that are ready to go out, whether the 4 or 2 or 3. But again, I've got all the latest episodes at the side, and it may be that I want to listen to one or take a point in time aspect of 5 minutes in, Grant said X, and include that to make it more personalized. Because what you're doing there is having more of an affinity with the hosts themselves and putting yourself ahead of the other guests that are trying to reach out, that are sending templated messages or going out there and just messaging generally about who they are and how amazing they are around that. And again, with the emails that you send out, we provide some templates, media kit templates, and some other email templates as well. So you can attach your media kit with your signature to the outgoing email that's being sent through our platform. So the host has got all the information about you, showing that you actually understand who they are and what they're doing, referencing a podcast that's recent, in the last couple of weeks or wherever it may be, and talking about areas that you can add value to them. So you're hitting all the key points of being a guest. And that's the core. That's the core of this. So all we're trying to do is help accelerate that and move it forward by providing this platform to make you do that in a more automated fashion. We don't stop you from downloading the information still, again, depending on plans, but you can download it and you can do it manually. You can go and do that. Campaigns take a little bit of time to set up, but when they start going, they're going in the background. You know, you're not having to worry about doing a follow-up email, do another follow-up email. Has it gone? You know, here's the number of podcasts, pitches sent, etc. They come into an inbox. It's there. It's happening. I don't have to go and double check it as well. So I will. 2 minutes to spare with a little bit of breath. I will stop sharing there, and we've got some questions as well. Well, thank you, Zoom. So we've got some questions, and I'll mute. Oh no, I won't mute. If you've got any questions, put them in the chat. It'll be easier, because otherwise I'll try to do your hands up and such. So how does a new podcast get added to be searched? So we're pulling data. Well, in February, by the end of March, we'll be pulling live data of our data partner with pings. So as a podcast goes live, we get a ping and we pull that data in within, if anybody that works in quarters, Q2, so April going onwards, that'll be a really fine line. So by the mid-year, we'll have live podcast episodes, updates coming to the platform and being promoted in the platform within an hour. So that's the plan there. We've been working on that for quite a while now to make that happen. Yeah, we walk through campaigns around that. Perfect. And if there's any other questions, then drop them in. But yeah, really what today was about. Oh yeah, Greg. Oh, is Greg on? Oh, perfect. Hey, Greg. Are you there, Greg?
Yes, I am, Stuart.
Perfect. Well, Mike's, yeah, so you've been using Podcast Talk for ages now. Is there anything nice you'd like to say? Well, you can say anything negative if you want to. Is there anything nice you'd like to say? Has it help you with getting on some of the podcasts? Is it taking some of the pain away?
Well, first and foremost, I'm a huge fan of your platform and the service that you provide. I see Mike Short's on the line too.
Yeah.
As a result of using your tool, I've been able to be on 60 podcasts. And, you know, that was in 6 months. And I would not have been able to do it without the automation that your service provides. And so I've seen that you're adding additional capabilities to that. I was able to reach out to over 500 podcasts, and using some similar tools, I was able to get about a 70% open rate on my cold emails.
Excellent. Oh, that's good. Unscripted as well. Thank you, Mike. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
Yeah. No, sorry. Thank you, Greg. No, I've unmuted Mike as well. So it's
Yeah, thanks, Stuart. Yeah, Greg and I are in a mastermind group together, and I saw him pop on. So, we're talking about it all the time. And of course, I'm an affiliate with Podcast Talk too, which I'm excited about that relationship. But Greg just kind of sets an example for a lot of us, and he's got some great intro emails written and that type of thing that have, like he said, gotten him a tremendous success rate. So I didn't really want to jump on and say anything directly other than just to point out Greg's here, and awesome. He's a terrific partner in our mastermind group, and just I know he's had as much, if not more, success with Podcast Talk as anybody else I know, for sure. So
thanks, Mike. I appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks to you both. I know we've got a couple of users as well, like yourself, Greg, that have done 60 to 100 podcasts now. Obviously, Ray's smashing it because he's testing the tool every day, so he's getting on podcasts all over. I'm a little bit behind because I'm more doing customer service and sales wise, so I need to get back up to speed again. But yeah, no, today we wanted to, again, it's sort of want to shine the light more about that whole benefit of being a guest on a podcast. It just takes less time, less effort, and I am quite lazy. So me and Ray have both tried to set up our own podcast, me randomly about SaaS and revenue and stuff. And it is hard. You've got to grind it. That's awesome. That's awesome, Greg. And well, again, thanks everybody for joining. Thanks for chiming in as well. And Greg, I'll reach out to you because now you're my second case study as well, if you don't mind. But again, thanks everybody for joining today. We're going to do some more of these webinars, just talking about some of the benefits about guest podcasting, some of the tools out there, some of the mechanisms to get better, any share templates as well. So we've got some more templates, but if there's anything, again, that works, love to share that with a wider community as well. But again, thanks everybody for joining today. I really appreciate it.